Welcome, everyone. This is SatiSeva. My name is Julia. I am the main facilitator of this offering. SatiSeva is an affinity group associated with Recovery Dharma. This is a practice of mindfulness, very specifically. And our focus is on people who are in recovery, as well as people who find themselves in more supportive roles. Friends, family members, professionals, allies. 6 years ago, when I started SatiSeva, I became aware of the fact that in traditional recovery, people who were in recovery from any kind of negative habit energy were in one group, and then everyone else, support people, family members, and so forth, were in this separate group. And the two rarely ever mingled. They rarely ever got together and talked about how universal habit energy is. For one person, negative habit energy may manifest in the form of abusing alcohol, for example. For someone else, negative habit energy manifests as unskillful speech, biting tones, reactive email writing, and so forth. SatiSeva endeavors to level the playing field so that we're not so hyperfixated on what kind of habit energy you are currently enduring, but to recognize that habit energy is oh so very human. And the implementation of mindfulness practices can be extraordinarily helpful. So SatiSeva is 16 mindfulness trainings based on the work and inspired by the work of Thich Nhat Hanh, my first Buddhist teacher. And with that, let me invite our chime to sing. Begin. I'd like to read a sentiment of loving kindness as a way of beginning our practice. And I'd like to emphasize that we're going to begin this reflection, this practice, with a sentiment imbued with loving kindness, maitri, one of the 4 limitless qualities in Buddhism that we endeavor to cultivate. The other 3 are compassion, joy, and equanimity. So take a moment, arrive to this practice. If you've been moving around, if you're busy doing something, just stop. Take a deep breath and see if you can receive this sentiment. And if you can't, if you're resistant, if you feel closed off, just make a note of that. It's a curious thing, resistance. And you can even employ one of our instruments of peace that we've been talking about, which is, would you look at that? I can't receive this sentiment. Or if this sentiment lands deeply and maybe even stirs some emotion, would you look at that? Be gentle. This is a little painting I did, and I write these sentiments on the back. This one reads, may you sense a holy urgency to live your precious life. May you sense a holy urgency to live your precious life. Friends, for the past several weeks, we have been exploring the first chapter in our SatiSeva book, The Cultivation of Awareness. This is a mindfulness practice for the spirit. SatiSeva is divided into 3 parts. You all may be familiar with the very common trinity of mind, body, spirit. I flipped the presentation of that particular trinity to begin with spirit, because it is my belief and observation that many of us are suffering from a crisis of spirit. Many of us have been harmed by Western mythologies. Many of us have been harmed by traditional approaches to recovery, and we're seeking something else, something new. And so we begin with the spirit. There are 5 mindfulness practices. The first is the cultivation of awareness. It is the bedrock, the foundation of everything. Without awareness, the body and the mind are in a perpetual state of reactivity. We're just moving from one reaction to the next. The spirit of us, the soul of us, barely gets a whisper of attention. So this particular chapter begins with a very macro view, an enormous view of the cosmos, and the recognition that we are the result of evolutionary magic. Humans are the last to arrive from this primordial soup. We're new, we're young in this evolutionary timeline. And one of the things that's so profound about science, and certainly even about Buddhism, was the encouragement to connect and awaken to our many connections to all of life, even things that don't breathe. We are connected to. So you have these mineral deposits and stones and various things like that that break down over time. They feed the soil, they become the soil, they filter our water, things that we are dependent upon. They filter the water for the trees, they create lush, loamy soil for tree roots to grow and stretch. Trees, while they look nothing like us, we share many, many aspects of trees. I think it's upwards of 70% similarities with trees. And one of the most connecting relationships to our trees is the way they clean the air. They are the earth's lungs. Without the trees, we would not be here. For millions of years, through all kinds of events of heat and freezing, living forms have created the conditions for our slow churning arrival. And in this moment, it's all come down to this moment, your life, how precious it is, and how quick. We're here for a moment. And in this moment, in this 80-year blink of an eye, many of us suffer deeply, forgetting that we are forever under the watchful gaze of the cosmos. that we are part of something mysterious, majestic, and magnificent. And by extension, we are, each of us, mysterious, majestic, and magnificent. What we see out into the cosmos, if we can train our eyes and cultivate some awareness, we are within our own mind, body, and spirit. There are two instruments of peace that we've been talking about in the mindfulness practice of awareness. Instruments of peace are what I call the tools for the SatiSeva mindfulness trainings. The first is, would you look at that as a mantra? I was telling Lo this morning that I have felt a little bit behind in writing some correspondence and sending out book orders and so forth. And I'm not really behind, but in our very quick 24-hour, constantly working culture, a couple of days is behind. And I feel that urgency, and it doesn't feel good. So I caught myself this morning and I was like, wow, would you look at that, Julia? It's okay to slow down. I need to slow down. If I don't slow down once in a while, I become careless and unskillful. This is why the sentiment and the words holy urgency, HOLY, are intentional. I want to challenge this urgency to keep going, keep striving, keep moving, keep working. That grind, go, you're never enough, more. Wow, would you look at that? I want to challenge it by adding a single word, holy. Let's make this urgency sacred. And by doing so, we do something very different. For me, that energy, that striving, that getting things done takes on a presence. If I'm writing to someone, I picture them in my mind's eye. I hear their voice. I think about conversations that we've had. I ask questions. I'm horribly nosy. So if you ever write to me, I'm going to get up all in your grill, ask questions, and I'm going to share. And I'm going to get things done, but it's going to be a sacred practice, slower, more present, more in tune, more aware. Maybe you're here today sharing this space with a loved one. And maybe that loved one is thinking, I'm only here because so and so has a drug problem. I'm fine. They're the one with the problem. Would you look at that? As if having a negative relationship to drugs and alcohol is the only problem that any of us have. Never mind the way we get impatient when we're driving. Never mind a negative relationship to food or exercise or work. Never mind the negative habit energy of gossip. Never mind the negative habit energy reflected in one's inability to accept and receive a compliment. These are all ways that we diminish the magnificence of our lives. Would you look at that? The second instrument of peace is first and second arrows. This is an ancient practice. And it refers to noticing when we've done something unskillful. Say we become aware of gossiping about someone or judging someone. That's the first arrow. I've just judged someone. That isn't skillful. I wonder why I said that. I wonder why I thought that. Would you look at that? The second arrow, friends, is all the ways we diminish, criticize ourselves. I can't believe I said that. What's the matter with me? I thought I was farther along on this spiritual journey. I know better. What's my problem? Let's say we come aware of a first arrow that arises in the form of a craving. I can't believe I had that craving. I can't believe that thought came into my mind. I can't believe I think that that substance is going to be helpful when I know it's not. God, what is the matter with me? I was doing so well. I can't believe this is still plaguing me after 3 months or 3 years. I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to figure this out. I'm always going to be a burden to everybody. Second arrows, friends. They are distortions. And they are worth gently pulling out and examining. Because remember, even though all of that may be true, it's not the whole truth. That's an instrument of peace we're going to learn next. The truth is, we all have all of these idiosyncrasies, all these flaws and imperfections, while also under an infinite gaze of beauty, majesty, magnificence, mystery, wonder. I like to remind myself every once in a while when I'm working with second arrows is to remind myself I'm not okay. Like this doesn't feel good. I'm not okay. And I am okay. So that's a little summary of what we've been talking about and how we're going to finish up. And now what I'd like to do is spend some time. The very end of each chapter is a mindfulness meditation. And Thich Nhat Hanh was famous for bringing mindfulness to the world's awareness. And he really loved partnering mantras with inhalation and exhalation breathing. Very simple. Breathing in, I'm here. Breathing out, I'm here. Breathing in, awareness. Breathing out, awareness. And you're limited only by your imagination, partnering the breath with any kind of mantra to help you sit with any discomfort. And sitting with discomfort, the goal isn't about making the discomfort more comfortable, although that can happen. The goal of sitting with discomfort is sitting with it. It's as simple and profound as that. It's being with the discomfort and gaining access to its clarity. That clarity is the vehicle by which we gain comfort. Clear is kind, as Brené Brown likes to say. Clarity brings comfort. So when we sit with whatever is bugging us, even if the mind is racing and thinking about a million things, it doesn't matter. If you're sitting with it exactly as you are, noticing, would you look at that? Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Wow. Noticing it all, being with it all, and gaining clarity. That's the vehicle toward comfort. So the meditation that I'm going to offer two today, the first one is kind of about, I call it clearing the decks a little bit. And it's like you've heard all of this information from me, and now let's clear the decks and let's practice. And this is a very simple meditation of breathing in, breathing out, and saying one. Breathing in, breathing out, two. Breathing in, breathing out, three. Breathing in, breathing out, four. Allow this inhalation, exhalation to go to 10. Don't worry about starting over if you get lost. Just start where you remember. You can start over if you want to. There's a little bit of negativity with that practice, though, because it can trigger the mind into, oh God, I'm starting over from square one. I'm such a failure. My inner critic is pretty hyped up about that one. And so when I get lost in thought, which I do all the time, I just pick up where I left off. So maybe I left off on number 5 and my mind started to wander about a noise or an appointment I have later today or whatever. And then I think, was I on number 5 or was I on number 6? And then I say, would you look at that? It doesn't matter. Let's just say I'm going to pick up at number 7. Breathing in, breathing out. Make it joyful. Have fun with this. And let's breathe now together as a community, silently, just noticing what comes up through the simple practice of breathing in and breathing out. Enjoy. friends. What ancient people, great sages like the Buddha, knew so long ago and have known ever since. They didn't have the science yet to show this and to prove this, but they knew that breathing with intentionality changed the body and the mind. We know now with science that breathing with intentionality, bringing the attention simply to an inhalation and an exhalation with some degree of concentration, increases the oxygenated load throughout the bloodstream. So the lungs fill more. They get pumped around and through the heart, throughout the whole system of the body. And that means more oxygen is delivered throughout the entire body system. Every organ begins to work and function better. It's really amazing when you think about it. So, to take this practice of awareness even deeper, we pair mantras to the inhalation and the exhalation. And I encourage everyone to first begin by just breathing with intentionality and awareness. The simple inhalation, exhalation, 1, and count to 10 if you're able. Count to 3 if that's all you're able to do. It really matters. And then to begin to apply a little bit of holiness to your practice that changes the status quo of our reactivity. It makes us do something a little bit differently. We intentionally put the body in a particular posture, a noble posture. And so, how to do that very simply is wherever you are, even if you're moving, just take a moment to pause and stand nice and tall. If you're sitting, sit nice and tall. Straighten your spine. Roll your shoulders back. It might feel tight. It might feel weird. Let it be. Lift your heart. Lead with the heart. Sada. And breathe. Breathing in. Breathing out. And then let's say you're dealing with something. Let's say a craving has arisen. That's very common. Or let's say you have a nightmare about drinking. Or let's say you had a difficult conversation with a loved one and it's nagging at you. Breathing in, craving. Breathing out, I acknowledge that. Breathing in, an upsetting nightmare. Breathing out, this new moment. Breathing in, an upsetting conversation. Breathing out, I am here to understand it. In each of those scenarios, you can take the breath practice and add mantras to expand your understanding. So, with the craving scenario, maybe the next cycle of breath is breathing in. Where does this craving live in my body? Breathing out to that part of my body. Breathing in fear about this craving. Breathing out a reminder, I'm okay. You are limited only by your imagination. And your own mind and your own heart knows exactly the kinds of mantras that you need to hear for whatever situation is arising for you in this moment. So, for the remainder of our time, let's just quietly reflect on that, breathing in and out, and just see if some natural space begins to emerge and something arises from within that space, wanting your attention and your awareness, and see if you can meet that with the beauty of the breath. And from there, what is your awareness ready to reveal? Breathing in, breathing out. Friends, as we take a step toward the conclusion of this practice and open up this space for community sharing, don't forget to use this practice to acknowledge and honor all the wonderful things that can happen in our lives too. While we cultivate awareness for the things that cause us strife and struggle, we want to remember to acknowledge and honor those things that bring us success and ease. And I had actually forgotten that as I was sitting quietly just for that moment. Suddenly, this awareness came to my attention that happened yesterday, actually, and it was instigated by my 24-year-old son who is neurodivergent, and he's not a very touchy-feely guy. And yesterday, he came up to me and hugged me for a really long time. Like he hugged me fully and actually took a deep breath in and took a deep breath out so that we had this moment where our hearts could synchronize in our rhythm. And oh, it was so warm and sweet. And as I sat with that for a moment, breathing, I could feel the warmth of him with me. Just a beautiful, beautiful thing to have imprinted in my mind, my body, and my spirit. All because I took a little time to breathe. Okay. So we can have a moment to integrate, in for the since the 1st of January in the Spokane Sangha and in all of our recovery Dharma practices, we've been emphasizing working with duality. The negativity over here, the positivity over here. And we're really trying to get at the black and white thinking that is so pervasive in the Western mind. In fact, it's no exaggeration to say that the Western culture is defined by black and white thinking. And it is a real detriment to spirit because the nature of reality isn't just black or white. It's both of those things and more. It's both black and white and everything in between, but we have forgotten that. We've just abandoned that perspective of reality entirely. And this is what Eastern philosophy does so well at teaching. And so it helps us to unlearn and then relearn these new perspectives. And the reason why I'm bringing this forward is because in recovery communities, there is a strong propensity to tell a story, to have a narrative that says, I'm the worst person in the world. I've done all of these regrettable things. I've made all of these awful mistakes. I've had all these choices and I made all the wrong choices and I've hurt so many people and I've done so many things and I've been full of so much misconduct. I'm the worst person in the world. To recover from that in a Western mind is its opposite, which is, so here's the image of perfection. I have to be perfect. I have to abstain from whatever my substance is all the time. I make a decision to not use, and that means forever and ever, amen. A thought of it is a bad thing. A dream of it is a bad thing. Any kind of blemish to this notion of perfection means I'm bad. I bring this forward because both of those extremes illustrate the inflated and distorted ego. They're both highly, highly egoic. The worst person in the world to this goal of being the best, most unblemished, flawless, perfect person in the world. Both are distortions. Now, in a lot of spiritual circles, there's talk, even in Buddhist circles, there's talk about getting rid of the ego. And I don't find it that very inspiring. That's never been my goal. My goal is to identify the conditions for when I get really egoic. When I go to those stories of negativity, what are the conditions of that? When I go to the stories of perfection and not enoughness, what are the conditions for that? And the more I understand the conditions of those arisings of distorted ego, the more I land somewhere in the middle. And I guess in essence, those extreme ego personas do fade away. They lessen in intensity over time and practice, but they still come up. So for me, it's not been about never having them arise. It's about how do I work with them when they do come into my awareness. But I bring that forward because even on the journey of recovery, we are taxed with this idea that there's somehow a perfect recovery. There's a perfect goal to be achieved. And when we have that in mind, then any recurrence, any temptation is a threat. And whenever we feel threatened, the reactive nature of us isn't to lean in with curiosity, it's to run away with aversion. So it's really imperative that when we take on these Buddhist practices and principles, that we pause with a spirit of curiosity. Wow, would you look at that? I've had a recurrence. I went back to my habit energy. I may have even been soothed using it for a little while. It was effective. Wow, look at that. Until it wasn't. And now I'm back on managing and working with this habit energy because I know in the long run it doesn't serve my aspirations. It's very different language. It's a very different perspective, and it's a way of working with those extreme egos on either end, constantly vying for our attention, tug of war, making that inner conflict. And notice how there are no excuses here. I didn't go back to habit energy because this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened. It's just an observation. I went back to habit energy. These were the pros. These were the cons. These are the choices that I'm going to make to do something different. It's very pragmatic. And it's a practice. So I want to thank you all for practicing with me today. And really working on cultivating this awareness that's neutral and full of joy and curiosity. Friends, we meet again we meet in March. So let's see where that is. That would be March 1st, Sunday. We meet March 1st, Sunday, and we're going to jump right into the second mindfulness practice, which is the cultivation of openness. This is the book that we've been referring to, and it's SatiSeva, Reimagining Recovery and Support. And you can order this book on our website. Lo will post the link if she hasn't already. You can also order it online. We recommend that you order through bookshop.org versus other big retailers. I think Barnes and Noble, you can order it through them and those types of things as well. If you order it through Soul Center and you live in the United States, you'll get a signed copy. If you live outside of the United States, even including Canada, the shipping is cost prohibitive. I'm so sorry to say. I just was evaluating the shipping to Canada very recently, and it costs more to ship the book than the cost of the book. Boo. I know. It's so sad. So, if you order it from us, you get a signed copy. Please check out on our website the audio recordings. One of the things about SatiSeva specifically that I think is pretty cool is they date back to the very beginning in January of 2020. And SatiSeva was in process. So you can hear the evolution of this practice. You can hear how it was sort of like we were grabbing for straws. I was curating a structure of it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. You can hear recordings of how I came up with the balaklohe for the boundaries. It's pretty amazing to have that documented. So there's tons of content out there, and really it is there to provide support and service to your practice. Everything there is offered freely, and please enjoy it and share it. email me with any questions or concerns. If you'd like to stick around, Laura, are we going to turn off, or are we just going to we're gonna we're gonna um, we're gonna go ahead and close down this meeting, but we'll be back at 1 o'clock for Recovery Dharma. And our Recovery Dharma practice, we're finishing up chapter 7, Relying on Effort, from Shantideva's work, The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And there's a wonderful activating word in here that I can't wait to challenge and dissect with you all. And I know it's very audacious of me to challenge the sentiment of Shantideva, beloved 8th century monk, and I'm going to do it anyway. So that's going to happen at 1 o'clock, and I hope you can join us. What else, Lo? Am I forgetting anything else? Peruse the website, enjoy it, and let me know what you think via your emails to me. Let's go ahead, friends, and end our practice today with a dedication of merit. We began our practice by setting an intention, which is a very traditional way to be in the company of these 3 jewels: the Buddha, this human being from ancient time, 600 years ago, this single human being who dedicated his life to understanding the causes and conditions of aggression, confusion, ignorance, aversion, and so on, as well as love and compassion and joy. And he talked about them and shared his experiences, his personal experiences, and invited other people to share their personal experiences. And that became the Dharma. And that community, the community that of people that agree with us, the community of people that don't agree with us, that challenge us and encourage us to think differently and have other experiences. We had a friend join us today from Africa, Northern Africa, Libya, actually, first time. Amazing. People from all over the world coming with their personal experiences, their lived experiences, their cultures. And that can change us. So we begin by setting an intention. Anytime we step in the presence of the 3 jewels, today's intention was to sense a holy urgency to live your precious life. And we end by dedicating this, our energy, our time together, for anybody who's out there trying to figure it out, lost, confused. And I'd like to offer this. May the wisdom of love encourage presence and care. May the tenderness of love be forgiving and accepting. May the strength of love nurture healing creativity. May the eyes of love gaze with gentle belonging. May the divine call to love ripple far and wide. This book and these practices are dedicated to each of us, to loved ones, for all the ways we are inspired, challenged, and shaped. For me, the whole purpose and meaning of being here is to learn how to better love myself and, by extension, life itself and all of you. Thank you for helping me gain access to that and to clarify my aspirations. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Namaste.